Hey, hey, Beat Baseball World! Welcome back to the Beat Ball Blues Show. Brand new year, same old crew. Neil Dog and Bam Bam here with you.
Look at you. Man, you are just the announcer extraordinaire.
I'm becoming a lyricist, Seth.
Yeah, right, man. Maybe a rap group in your future. The overblind 50 demographic. Over 50 and blind.
They'll make me as much money as everything else I've done, probably.
You never know. It's all about a niche, Neil. Though you got to get that niche.
But welcome back. Happy New Year, Seth.
Happy New Year to you, my friend.
2022 looking all right.
You know, it is what it is. It's another year.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see. We'll talk to me in 6 weeks. You know, once we've hoisted the Super Bowl trophy, then you know, tell you that 20, at least the beginning part of, or wasn't the worst, but.
We can't dive into football, but I am happy to say it's the last day of the regular season, and my Raiders are actually still in the hunt. They haven't been eliminated yet.
I thought you were going to say the last day of the Raiders season. I was like, oh, pessimist. Come on, man.
No. I am hopeful. I am hopeful. Even if we lose, there are other ways we could possibly get in.
Oh, you see, there you go.
I was reading an article.
Raider defeatism.
I was reading an article yesterday. It said if the Chargers and the Raiders finish in a tie, they might both get in. And the Chargers coach was like, well, at the end of the game, I'll have to give that some thought. You kidding me? You guys hate each other. Why would you even try? Anyways, back to Beat Baseball, starting off the new year. And I'm very excited to let everybody know that we are joined by the 2021 Hall of Fame inductee, Steve Stambaugh. Welcome to the show, Steven.
Hey, you got it.
Hey, thank you, Neil and Seth.
Absolutely. You know, something that I learned after having, played against you. Well, I mean, we've been around each other for nearly 30 years. That your name is Stambaugh with an M as in Mike and not N as in not Stambaugh or Stam. I all these years have been calling you Steve Stambaugh. I didn't realize that was an M. That's kind of a problem blind folk have with just hearing things and never seeing things. They don't always quite have the right word.
Hey, you
Very
blind
true.
folk that don't read Braille.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Whenever I have checked the spelling of your name, I just make sure I get the last few letters right. I always assumed I had the beginning of it right, but I just realized for the first time yesterday. It's like, hey, that's Stambaugh.
Neil Dog, I learned that fact right now.
Yeah. I'm guessing we may have, because honestly, it's always sounded to me like everybody says Stambaugh. So,
but they're out in Texas, let's you know. I can't understand those people anyway.
But I'm happy to finally have it right. But man, Steve, congratulations on making the Hall of Fame. What I guess to start out, what did that mean for you getting pulled in there?
Well, I mean, when you started out in '92 and then you went to 2010 playing in the league for 18 years, you're always hoping, that you'll get the opportunity to make in the Hall of Fame. So yeah, it's a great honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame for Beat Baseball.
I don't know if he had anything to do with it, but might take it as a compliment that like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, talking to Eric Mazriegos, and he's like, man, can you believe Steve Stambaugh? I'm still saying your name wrong. Can you believe Steve Stambaugh is not in the Hall of Fame? So I don't know if his being shocked by that motivated him to put in a thing. Do you know who nominated you?
Yeah. Well, I had a couple people reach out to me. Number one was Kyle Kennedy. He was saying that gee, I can't believe you haven't been nominated into the Hall of Fame. And I said, yeah, I don't know what the reasoning is. But he had said he was going to nominate me, and then Bob Bigger was actually the one that said, hey, I need to know your awards, when you won your awards at World Series and regional tournaments, so that I can nominate you into the Hall of Fame. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to dig in my boxes to see if I can even find them.
It'd be a very small box for me.
And don't either you or Bob Bigger have a computer here in 2020, whatever? Because I just took about 5 minutes looking all that stuff up on the MBBA website.
Well, but the thing is, though, Neil, you got to have a certain number of points to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so, I don't know what the total number was, but yeah, I figured I probably had enough with my World Series accomplishments. But, I asked Bob, I said, well, do you know, from your time of putting on the tournaments, who won the awards, during those time periods? And he goes, no, I don't keep those records. And I'm like, oh my God. So I dug in the box and, found all of my awards that I could come across, and that was plenty, I guess, to get in.
I guess just for the audience reference, I believe that it is like 5 all tournament, like a minimum of 5 all tournament selections is kind of the basic criteria. If there is a combination, like they'll substitute like regional, some of the regional tournaments. If you've gotten all tournament awards at the regionals, like 2 of those equal 1 World Series. So I believe that's kind of the basic criteria.
Yeah, I think you're close. Yeah, I think you're close. The thing that I just didn't understand is, why should you need to be nominated by, someone? It should be that the league looks at who is eligible for nominations and, bring them before the board or whatever to see, who should be put in the Hall of Fame. It shouldn't be a family member having to nominate you or, that type of deal.
I agree. Yeah, and in addition to that, I don't think it should just be about all tournament awards, because a lot of that is opportunity.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I think maybe there should be like a panel or something to kind of, did the player have an impact on the game? Because like an outfielder, you know what I mean? They're not going to get the opportunities to make the all tournament team on defense year in and year out. But it doesn't mean they weren't, one of the best outfielders of all time or whatever.
You're exactly right. And like with the NFL, NBA, you have a group of individuals that, like your writers, your commentary people that make those nominations. So there shouldn't be any reason why, put it on the responsibility of the coaches. The coaches know who's in that league, who makes an impact, in a ball game, and, kind of go from there.
Yeah. But in all fair, like what makes it kind of difficult with our sport too is, like, the coaches that saw the 3 of us play, most of them aren't even around anymore. You know what I mean? So
correct.
It would be the
you're exactly right. I mean,
there has
like I said, I quit.
I'm sorry. There would just have. It seems like there should have already been like some committee put together that would deal with that, because it is silly that somebody has to nominate you. I was like, Neil got caught, pretending to be me nominating himself, right? I mean, it was a joke, but it's the same thing. You could pretend to be somebody else just to nominate yourself, but in the end, it's a stupid or a silly system anyway. It should be done officially. You know what I'm saying? It should be on the league should figure out some subjective way to identify people, and then to nominate people, and then to select people, as opposed to this kind of this hard okay, well, somebody nominates you and then you have 5 all tournament appearances. It's kind of silly. So
that same
exactly right.
Go ahead, Steve.
And the thing is, I mean, to open up a Pandora's box, I was actually told that I could write up my own nomination and send it in.
I mean, that's crazy.
And I was like, really?
That same conversation that I had with Eric, where he was like stunned that you're not in the Hall of Fame, and going back and looking at your credentials, it is like props to Kyle Kennedy. He's newer to the league. He's a young man in his early 20s. For him to for you to catch his eye when he wasn't even barely born. He wasn't even born when you started playing, man.
Exactly right.
But your credentials definitely add up to it. But that same conversation I had with Eric, he was like, man, are you eligible? I was like, well, technically I'm eligible, but I'm not going to nominate myself. You know what I mean? Obviously, if somebody thought I was worthy, I would have been nominated probably by now. So, but let's talk about your credentials, man. Your career was spent playing with Kansas teams. Started out with the Wichita Sonics, and you have the distinction still of not only did you earn an MVP on offense in your first year in 1992, you backed it up in 1993 with another offensive MVP. The only time any player in our history has won back-to-back offensive MVPs. But something I didn't realize, or I didn't remember until like going through this stuff today. In 93, you made the defensive all-star team too. So your first 2 years, you knocked out 2 MVPs and a defensive all-star team. Did the game seem easy to you at that point? Like, were you just like, man, you know what? This isn't even a challenge.
Well, let me kind of tell you how it all started. In 92, the Wichita Sonics were always about wanting me to come out and see one of their practices. And I kept on putting them off. Well, finally, 1 week before the tournament, I went out to see what beat baseball was all about. And so they put me up to bat, and I remember hitting a foul ball off my left-hand side that went way up in the air, but it was probably 200 feet foul. And they were like, wow. I'm like, well, I hit the ball, but shit's not even fair. And so, like I said, I had one practice before the World Series in 92, and then I went into that World Series competition. So, I mean, it was amazing to have a good pitcher in the name of Jim Lyons that, made that possible in 92 and 93. Had a great spotter in the name of Ann Moss, who really taught me how to play the game defensively. So you can't do it without a pitcher, without a good spotter, and without a good coach. And our coach was Bill Stolkup, and he was probably one of the most mild-mannered individuals, in the league. Nothing seemed to rile him, but he always seemed to have the ability to say something to motivate you to, play your best.
Talk about Jim Lyons a little bit, man. That's a pitcher, like when these conversations come up in like Beatball Nation or anywhere else about the great pitchers, man, a lot of people from the last 20 years don't even know who Jim Lyons is. And man, in the 90s, he was one of the most dynamite pitchers. And with you guys specifically, most of you had the big like golf swings, the big deep dips with a big uppercut, and Jim would like throw this lollipop pitch, go up high, arcing, and come down on your bats. And man, when you guys were on, you would just hit these skyrockets, man. I think like Seth's original Bam Bam swing I would have fit in perfect with Jim Lyons, I think.
Exactly right. I mean, he did have that loop and pitch, and you would have to sit back and wait on it because it was like he would say, ready, pitch, and you would think, and swing. So, I mean, yeah, you'd have to really get your timing on there. But what was comical about Jim was he never wanted you to step towards him when you were swinging. He always wanted you to open up because he didn't want a line drive come back at him. So he always had us open up. And then when we were on a 3-1 count, you knew on a 3-1 count that the ball's coming in on your hands.
Yeah.
And when it come on your hands, then you hit it with your knuckles and you push it to the 40-foot line. And in the back of your mind, you'd hear him saying, use our speed. So, I mean, yeah, that was the key with Jim, though. And he never wanted you to take a pitch, though. He always hated when you took a pitch. So, yeah, he was a great, great pitcher.
He's one of my favorite like NBBA people in the 90s. I loved seeing him at the World Series. He was a great dude. When you guys made the championship game in 97 and played Austin and they won, but you guys played on that like high school football field with the real thick grass. Wasn't the final score like 3-1 or something real low like that?
It was like 9-something. But, you know, going back to that thick grass, yeah, I still give John Parker crap on that. We always told him, make sure they mow that goddamn football field. And it didn't get mowed.
I forgot that was that World Series was in Topeka, so that was more or less like a home World Series for you guys.
Correct.
Didn't Wichita 12 run us? We caught up and they 12 run us again. Wasn't that the Wichita team? And
I know.
That's what I also remember that. I think that was from the. I don't know why I always think of that being in the '98 World Series, but it might have been a different year.
No,
but
I was thinking of like '96 or whatever. But I just remember I thought it was Wichita. I mean, because you're right. I mean, Jim Lyons was a great pitcher or whatever. I mean, he always made contact, right? No matter what. In the end, the last hit, you know, when you think somebody's about to strike out, and then it's like, oh man, come on now. But he always made contact. But I always, you know, can remember him. I always thought it was him who did that, who 12 run us, and we caught up and 12 run us again.
Well, one of the things to remember about the Wichita Sonics is in '92 we made it to the consolation bracket game. And, you know, when we were in that consolation bracket game, everybody was all excited because they were like, wow, we get to play on the same field as the winner's bracket team gets to play in. And I'm thinking, we're playing for freaking 10th place. This, yeah, it means a lot, but my gosh, I want to do better than 10th place. And so to go from 10th place in '92 to making it to the World Championship game in '97, that was a huge accomplishment. And, you know, like I said, I mean, it's all about the team effort, the spotters, the pitcher, the coach, the players. And if you don't have all that, you're never going to make it to the championship game.
No, that's absolutely true. You have to have a whole group moving in the same direction to finish that high. Just a quick note on that '97 championship game I brought up because I believe Jim had 0 strikeouts in that game, right? In that championship
I believe
game?
so.
I know he had multiple games where he had no strikeouts, but I mean, just to give people an idea, that's how good Jim Lyons was. That guy had no strikeouts in a championship game.
I struck out 3-4 times in one game. But, just on Jim, I got to say, you know, I always am fond of his kids. They were the part of the original band.
The Bam Bam fan club.
Yep.
Randy, can't remember the girl's name, but
what her name? Christina or something?
Yeah,
I thought it was
Christy.
Christy.
Little Randy and Christy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I always see Randy on Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, and Beat Ball Nation.
Yeah, have my jersey and stuff. But yeah, they were the original Bam Bam fan club back then. So. Big ups to them. So.
Randy paid me a huge compliment. There was a conversation somewhere in the last like year in Beat Ball Nation, people throwing out names for the biggest trash talkers in all of beat baseball. And all the conversation was all the people who are playing now. And after about 20 comments, Randy Lyons comes along and says, Neil McDonald, 100%. I was like, oh, thank you, Randy. My mom wouldn't be proud, but I am. and Randy, like when he was watching me talk trash, he was like Delaney's age. He's a little kid.
No, yeah. Without a doubt.
So, Steve, man, you in 2002, you were a defensive MVP. You've made the All-Star team on offense and defense multiple times. Do you have a preference? Did you like playing one side or the other more?
Well, what was fun about defense was, I had an opportunity to play both deep and close. And I'll never forget Kevin Simpson. He would always say, well, if you want to make the All-Stars on the defense, play shortstop.
Yeah.
And, he's right, because you have a lot of time to, potentially pick up a ball, unless it's a 40-foot shot, then you got to do a slide and scoop type deal on an individual if you're playing 100 feet deep. But, you get a lot of opportunities to get a lot of putouts when you're playing up close. Playing deep, that's a whole nother ball game. I mean, those zones are so wide out there, but the thrill of putting somebody out at 150 feet, I mean, the rush is just unbelievable, because the next time that they come up, shoot, I got to get it past Stambaugh. And what are they going to do? They're going to top that ball, and then your short guy's going to gobble it up.
Yeah, I agree as far as like, the balls up front, players up front can always make a great play, and that, that fires up a team. But for the most part, you expect the people up front to knock the balls down. You know what I mean? Those are the most fieldable balls when they're up front. So you expect those to be put out. When an outfielder, 140, 150 feet out, runs over two zones and grabs a ball just, millisecond before the runner touches the base, that fires up a whole team. You know what I mean? It's like then you've taken something away from the other team that they thought they had, and man, that fires the whole team up. But I remember when they moved, because like against the Dogs, the Wichita Sonics and the Dogs through the 90s, and it had one of the best rivals. I mean, we just had some knockdown. Seth brought up the game where you guys 12 runned us twice, but that's not the kind of battles we had with the Sonics. I mean, every game for the most part that our two teams played was a knockdown drag out, and we were usually like one of the few teams that were challenging Austin for the championship. But I remember you used to just kill us in the outfield, running down balls out there. And when they moved you up front, I'm like, well, what are they doing? He's one of the best outfielders out there. And then you go average 5-6 putouts a game playing shortstop. So I didn't think that was a good move when you moved for the outfield up front, but it certainly didn't slow you down. You kept knocking them down.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, defense, I think I liked playing defense more than I did the offensive type of thing, because, with offense, it's all about timing. If you get your timing right, the pitcher gets the ball on the bat, you're good to go. Defense, man, you got to listen to the sound of the ball coming off the bat. You got to rely on that spotter getting you to move in the right location, and you got to know who's up to bat. And I just don't think, when I went out to the Wichita World Series this last year, and I watched everybody set up, and I thought, man, a lot of these teams aren't even marking the fields. We would get out there 30 to 45 minutes before a ball game and mark those fields, so we knew where everybody was supposed to be positioned.
We used to make fun of you for that. when Janet Leonard and Annie Moss were out in the field with their little spray can marking your spots, we made fun of you guys.
I'm telling you, but you know exactly where you're at. And if you practice that enough, you know exactly how many steps do I need to take for a dive to make it to that baseline. Yeah. I mean, I commend Jan and Annie for doing that, because they put in a lot of time measuring those zones. And, it really, truly did help out.
Did you have any, before you got into beat baseball, did you have any kind of background playing other sports?
I played football, basketball, ran track, and ran cross country.
Oh, that's a pretty big yes.
Yeah, just a few.
Did you have did you have 20/20 vision at that time, or were you doing that stuff
No.
like as a high partial?
High partial, 2200 vision, had RP.
You had it? Have you gotten over it? I know. I was
still got the RP and lost all the vision.
Oh, are you a total now?
Yep.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, haha. See, very funny, Neil Dog.
So is that why you stopped playing? You couldn't see the ball anymore.
Wasn't so easy anymore, huh?
No, the smackdown. No, I was. I started really losing it in 2000. I had what was called an acute angle closure glaucoma attack. So I lost all the vision in the right eye in 2000, and then probably by 2010, I lost it all in both eyes.
That glaucoma attack you're talking about, that's totally separate. Has nothing to do with the RP, right?
Correct.
It trips me out when people have these double like Faith Penn from Wool, the women of our league.
Yep.
She had glaucoma and was already losing her sight, and then got hit in the head by a soccer ball, and it detached her retinas. You know what I mean? It's like when I hear somebody getting hammered, you know what I mean? It's not easy to lose your eyesight overall. When I hear about people like yourself and Faith going through these double jeopardies, man, the world was determined to make you folks blind.
Wasn't happening quick enough.
Sorry, you've held on to what you have for too long.
Well, exactly right. I mean, if you think about it, in 2000 we went to Taiwan, and that's where we lost you guys in the World Series. But when I came back from Taiwan and I was having symptoms of an acute angle closure attack, when I was in Taiwan, the massive headaches, etc. In September was when they put me in the hospital for the acute angle closure glaucoma attack, and they didn't catch it for it was 10 days I was in the hospital. So that's why I've lost all the vision in that right eye initially. So in 2000 they did a whole bunch of different surgeries, and then by 2001 I was back to playing again, but lost all the vision in the right eye, and with the surgeries that they did in the left eye, it didn't help things.
Yeah. Man, what Seth's usually interested. When you played sports, what did you do in football? What position do you play?
Quarterback.
Ah, look at this. I had no idea.
Yeah, I could throw a football easily, hit somebody on a fly pattern 60 yards down the field.
Dang. That was pretty impressive. Seth's oldest son, Trajan, has been a quarterback his whole life thus far, pretty much. So, what about in basketball?
In basketball, I was outside shooter. I mean, I fed the people inside. I was only 6'1", 6'2", so like to shoot from the outside. And with RP, what was nice about with RP, you had the ability to really hone in and focus on the rim. You don't get distracted from all the peripheral vision type crap. So
got some tunnel vision.
You can really focus in on the rim.
You have to turn your head like Eric would have to do.
Yeah, Eric Mazariegos has RP, but he has the peripheral and no tunnel vision.
No tunnel,
so
it would throw your basketball shot all off.
Well, the only thing that really bugged me was, the no look pass. Yeah, that would freaking end up on the side of my head, because I would always watch, what's the guy gonna do? Yeah, he's looking at me. Here comes the ball. But, man, if they did that no-look pass, look out.
Going back to beep ball, do you from the time that you played over the 18 years, do you have like a favorite stretch of time? Like for me personally, like 95 to 2000, in that range, like that's always just stood out to me as my personal like kind of favorite little stretch, just because I felt like your team, the Sonics, us, Austin, Fort Worth, the Cobras, like we all, even though it was Austin winning the championship every year, it's like that group of teams, Houston at times was in there. Just, man, I don't know. I felt like it was every one of those teams had a shot at winning the championship going into each tournament. Do you have a favorite stretch of time that you enjoyed playing the most?
Well, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, it's with the Wichita Sonic from 92 to 99 is when we had that team. And, that team was a lot different than the 2000 to 2010 Kansas All-Stars. The All-Stars, you had a lot of All-Stars on that team. I mean, besides Parker, Biggins, Chad Sumner, I mean, that team was loaded. And
Kevin Burton played with you guys too, right?
Kevin Burton played with us, correct. And, with that team, we didn't do a lot of practices like we did with the Wichita Sonics. The Wichita Sonics, we had practices twice a week. Well, with the Kansas All-Stars, we would maybe have a practice once a week. But everybody knew what they needed to do. And, it was definitely not recreational whatsoever. It was like we come to win, every single doggone game. But, going back to your initial question, Neil, is, like with Houston and Austin and Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, I mean, you were in a doggone battle every single game. I mean, it wasn't like, well, we can take it easy on this team. No, those you got on a roll with Houston. Geez, you could be out there in the field for a long time. And I remember one time, I don't know what World Series it was, but the final score was like 35 to 32. Houston beat us, but they had us down so bad. I was playing deep. Parker was on the other side playing deep, and they were hitting rocket shots out there to me. One bounce, and then it was down into a canyon. And so I remember Parker saying to me, "Come on, Stan, we'll make a play." And I'm like, "Get your ass over here and you play this position." So we switched out. And here comes the next ball. Boom! One bounce. Boom! Down in the canyon. Come on, John, make a play. So, it was, when Houston got on the hot streak, God, look out. You could be out there a long time. Same way with Austin. But I love playing Kevin Simpson because you always knew you always needed to be on your toes because the ball was going to be put into play. But making a great play on a Kevin Simpson team to put one of his players out, man, when he'd go back to the bench and throw down his glove, you just smile. You just smile. And just, don't say anything. Just smile. Because you knew if you said anything to him, oh, God, the hell of wrath is going to come down on you later on in that inning.
That's funny. We took that same kind of pride whenever our spotter's like, Kevin's throwing his glove. It's like, oh, yeah, all right. Now we're getting somewhere. But
he might win the championship, but we're at least getting him to throw his glove.
He always had the last laugh, unfortunately.
Very true. Very true.
So what was your greatest game?
The greatest game?
Yeah, what was your greatest game?
Not I think the greatest game.
Whatever you mean by whatever you take greatest to mean.
I think the greatest game would be to make it into that championship game in '97, because Randy Stolkup, Bill Stolkup, Jim Lyons, they'd never been in that type of a big game. And, to make
they'd
that
been
possible,
around for a while, because you started in
Correct.
'92, but the Stahlcup family and the Sonics, they go back to the '80s.
Correct. And for them, like I said, I mean, when we were in 10th place in '92, they were all thrilled. They were like, "This is the best that we've ever done." I'm thinking, geez, it's gonna be a long season with these guys. But to make it in that championship game in '97, I mean, we were elated. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, Neil, did we beat you guys to be put into that championship game?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Kinda. You guys were aided in beating us to get into that.
We honestly, that's one of our most bitter memories. In '97, the undefeated game on Friday was us and Austin, and they beat us in a 7-inning game. And in the 6th inning, Eric had made a play that should have ended the game, and the umpire said that he didn't have the ball off the ground, and like Marge Bancroft had videotape of him holding the ball off the ground. And the umpire's like, nope, he didn't have it off the ground. And so then they scored the next that would have put us in the championship game as the undefeated team. And then they scored on the next play and tied the game. We went into an extra inning and lost to them by 1 run. And then we had to play you guys, and man, we just didn't have any fire. That losing that Austin game just took it out of us. Because you guys were coming up. You guys had to come up through the losers bracket and to get to the championship game. And
yep.
I remember when we went into that game, that was going to be your 3rd game of the day. I was like, man, these guys played their 3rd game. We've got to take this. But you guys whooped us 15-8. We were never really even in that game. You let us have it.
It's hard to lose an undefeated game and play again later on that afternoon. It's a hard,
especially in the way we had a huge battle with the umpire after that. Scott Skinner, man, that guy was the biggest jerk in the world, man. Say it flat out, biggest jerk in the world. Dan Tracy told me a couple months later, when I went to the board meeting, Dan Tracy picked me up at the airport, and we went out and had a bite to eat. He told us that, I don't know if that was correct, because it just seems weird, but he said that we could have, what's that, filed a
dispute?
Yeah, dispute or whatever. It's not the word they use, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Which I don't know that we could have for that kind of call. It doesn't seem protest. That's what file a protest.
Oh yeah, protest. Mm-hmm.
But Dan Tracy told me that this guy Scott Skinner is like, because the Dogs, we were definitely the team that had the most attitude. We were very mouthy. A lot of teams hated us. And this guy Scott Skinner, he's this like ex Marine, and he came in and was like, "Oh, these guys think they're the bad boys of b-ball, huh? All right, I'll show them." Like he verbally said that, like out loud, like, "Oh, I'll show them." And then he like screws us out and get to the championship game. It's like, oh man, that was a rough one. But go ahead.
Well, you mentioned a real name from the past. I mean, with Dan Tracy. I mean, it's a shame that the young players aren't going to get an opportunity to, play with Dan Tracy umpiring, because he was, he was unbelievable. Played he called a good game, but, he had his little, quirks that.
Good. My word was going to be issues, but.
I love the Tracy family, and I was heartbroken when Dee Dee Tracy passed away. But man, yeah. Dan and I just had a hard time seeing eye to eye on stuff on the field. I can remember at coaches' captains meetings before the World Series, like the day before the World Series would start, Dan and I would start going, and people around the room was like, "Oh Lord, here we go." It just bothered me that he had his Jim Wolf's the one that pointed it out. There's the NBBA rules and there's the Dan Tracy rules. He sometimes came up with his his own way of doing stuff, and it was frustrating at times, man.
Well, and I love Kemp. Kemp was a great umpire, and Seth, you were talking
all these
about
guys
playing.
that I had issues with at one point in time, but we all ended on a good note. I got to say.
Yeah.
We all ended on.
Well, you were talking about playing 3 games, when you're in that losers bracket or whatever, and I'll never forget we were playing in one of those 3-game long days. And in the first game, one of our players, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but I mean he's going to know who it is when I drop this story. But anyway, first game of that 3-game deal, he split out his shorts, and he wasn't wearing baseball pants. Okay, and so
Parker.
No, I'm not saying it is.
All right.
But anyway, he split out his pants, so he had no change of clothes. And so the 3rd game, we have Kemp. And the player got up there, and he did his batting. And so I walk up to the plate, and Kemp goes, "Hey, Stambaugh, got a question for you." I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "Does your player know of his situation?" And I mean, by the 3rd game, guys, those shorts, the whole back end was gone. He was in his tighty-whities. And for Kemp to say that in the most classic, no humiliation type deal, I mean, I was just busting the gut going, yeah, he knows of his situation.
So do you have any favorite players that stand out to you from your time of playing? People that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, in the 90s, I used to watch Devin a lot from Fort Worth.
Yeah, Devin
I don't remember
Nance.
what Devin.
Devin Nance.
Yeah, unbelievable. He was
one of the greatest outfielders that ever played our game, I think.
Correct. And I'd watch him and, try to do the same dive moves, and Ann Moss would always laugh at me because I'd be diving on the bed going, "Man, did you see how he did that? He jumped and he flipped in the air on his side." And, just unbelievable. Some of the other people, Rob Wygant,
yeah,
crazy. He could put you out deep too.
Yeah.
Short guys, of course, Eric from the Dogs was always a person that you didn't want to hit a grounder to.
Yeah, might as well not run the base. Yeah, ball is short. All right, I'll go sit down.
Yeah, you were like, you're done. I don't know. It was fun. You just knew who you were going to be in a real true battle with.
Yeah.
Every day.
Devin Nance made a play against you guys once that Kevin Simpson was the one that described it to me, and I think this too came from the '97 tournament. I know it was right in that era somewhere, but Fort Worth and Wichita were playing, and Parker hit one that was going over Devin's head, and Devin picked up on it pretty much off the bat, turned his back to the plate. It was running out to the outfield with his arms stretched up above his head, with his hands facing back towards the plate, and the ball hit one of his hands, and he had the frame of mind or whatever he cupped his hand around the back of the ball and slammed it into the ground and then fielded it. And it's like, man, the presence of mind to do that, like that, you can't teach that. You know what I mean? That's just all instinct right there. It's like, man, I don't know that I've ever heard of an outfielder making a play better than that.
You're exactly right. I mean, I would love to know, did he practice, fielding dead balls? Because that was one of the things
He did.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
finish your point.
That was one of the things that I did all the time. Practice fielding the dead balls. Because
Frank,
you can't go ahead. Go ahead. Well, you can't ever get that feeling of what it's like for the sound of the bat, the ball coming off the bat, unless you're actually out there in the outfield fielding those dead balls. And I think that's one of the things that really helped me out a lot, playing deep, playing short, was to be standing out there in the heat while, Jim Lyons or Jim Wolf is pitching to somebody and trying to pick up the balls. Even though you can't hear them, your spotter's working on calling the spot, but you're listening to how that ball's coming off the bat. And if you can read how that ball's coming off the bat, wow, you just saved yourself a half a second.
Frank Mathena told me a long time ago, because Devin grew up in the out in the farmlands around Fort Worth, and his brothers would take him out in the fields and hit dead balls to him. Like, not even, I don't even think they were beat balls. They did like softballs or hard balls at him, and he was fielding those out in the fields of Texas, man. So he definitely was doing stuff different than other players.
Well, and these players these days, they don't know like what it's like to play with a poly ball. I mean, man, I mean, those poly balls were deadly. And, I don't know. I have so many scars on my hips from playing in like World Series down in Austin, Texas, I believe was in 93.
Well, 93 and 96. Oh, 93 was the one that was really bad. I remember we were all torn up too.
Yeah, they had no rain in like 50 or 60 some days, and oh my God. Yeah, that was brutal.
I still have a scar on my leg from that damn tournament.
In 93, that was the year. That was really kind of the starting of the West Coast Dogs. But my local team here in Sacramento is called the Sacramento Thrashers, and 93 is the only year that we played in a World Series. But it was like Fabiano was with us, Eric, Seth, me, Roger was on that team. So that was more or less the beginning of the Dogs. We were the Dogs the following year. But I had this great idea when we got our uniforms to try football pants, because they already had the pads built into it, you know what I mean, and all that. But the problem with football pants is they just simply go to the bottom of your knee. And none of us had socks that went up above that. So our legs were exposed from the top of our socks to the bottom of our pants. And in that 93 tournament, we were just playing in dirt, really hard, compact dirt.
Brutal.
And I remember when the tournament was over, just having to scrape crap literally out of my skin. Like dirt and grit and all kinds of junk was just embedded in these sores I had on my legs from diving on that ground.
Well, here's a story for you about John Parker in 93. Okay, so we were supposed to get ready for practice that, Bill Stolkup wanted to have us go out there and look at the fields. Well, we couldn't find John, of course. And so I think little Randy found him and said, "Hey, we're going out to the practice field." And John goes, "Okay." So he just gets out of the pool and he's wearing a Speedo, okay? A yellow Speedo. He has two girls that are with him, and they come along. And so we're like, "John, are you going to go up to your room and get your pads and stuff?" "No, I'm good. So we get out there to the field, and he takes batting practice, and he's out there in the field.
He's not still in a Speedo.
He is. He's definitely still in a Speedo. And so I'm sitting on the sidelines, and Bill Stolkup comes up to me and he goes, "Watch this." And he hits a ball down the foul line. Parker goes running over there, dives on the ground in that Speedo. And all he hears is, "Ugh." He comes up, and Bill goes, "Throw it on in here." So John throws it on in here, and John's trying to clean out his Speedo, kind of shaking that out. And I said to Bill, "Do it again." So he did it again, and he dove on there, and he's cleaning out his Speedo again. And that was the funniest thing, watching a yellow submarine Speedo running across the field, sliding on a field that hadn't been rained on in like 60 some days.
You know what you're
No,
saying.
I always like, John Parker's such a warrior, all those injuries and stuff. But he's a moron, man. Come on. You deserve to get hurt doing that crazy stuff, man. What are
when
you
you
doing?
when you said him hitting the ground, you heard the big, it's like, it reminded me, it's like, I don't remember any player making more noise than Parker up at the plate. Like, every swing was like, I'd forgotten all about that too. You just talked about him grunting, hitting the ground. Well, shoot, man. I could talk old beat baseball with you guys all day long, but we've probably been self-indulgent enough for our fan base. You got anything else for this Hall of Famer set, dog?
All the 20-year-olds have already stopped listening and stuff like that. It's their game.
Well, hopefully they at least learn, Neil and Seth, that you got to put in the time. You got to really reward your spotters, your pitchers, your coaches. Respect what they're offering to you, because they're offering your time, or their time, to help you enjoy the game that we all enjoyed to play. And just keep practicing, because you can go from 10th place to being in the championship game.
Keep at it. Coming out of this past World Series, there were so many Hall of Fame inductees, and so many of them were people that we played with. Deb Brummer. I always get her last name wrong, but I think I did it right this time.
Yep.
Kevin Burton and Rob Wygant. People we've been talking about in this show. Excuse me. So, I want to make sure that we highlight these players, but I wanted to reach out to you first, because I don't know, we just the three of us have such a history together. We played so many games against each other, but I wanted to get you on here, Steve, talk some old times, and just highlight what was a great career, man. Congratulations on your induction, because you definitely deserve it.
Appreciate it, Neil and Seth.
And I always appreciate your Facebook posts. I think they're a level-headed guy. I believe you do the Heather Cox Richardson repost.
Correct. Yep.
They're very intelligent historians. So, man, I always appreciate reading your the stuff you put out. Man. So, good level-headed guy, man. Good level-headed guy.
I appreciate that you've been such a cool fan of this show. Like, you've reached out to me quite a few times. You make comments up on Facebook about the stuff we're doing. You've been very supportive of this show. I certainly appreciate it. It's meant a lot to me doing it. That, like, I mean, obviously, mostly we're highlighting the people who are playing now, and I've loved being part of that. But I also love it when someone like yourself, Steve, or Ernest Cook, these guys that we played against years ago are saying, hey, good show. I love that the old timers are checking this out and going through this with us. It means a lot to me.
Very good.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. That is it for this show. Don't know what we'll be doing next week. I just know that we'll be here doing it with you.
One of us will be watching playoff football. Just saying, one of us could be watching playoff football. I know what I'll be doing next week, so don't worry about me, bro.
Well, Seth gets no thank you this week now. No, thanks to everybody. I'm so happy that here in 2022 that we are still marching forward with this. This is episode number 71. Sounds like a big number to me, so I don't know. I want to keep on rolling with this. Thanks to everybody for being with us. Thank you, Steve Stambaugh, for joining us. Thanks, Seth Dog. Thank you, Frank Porter, for all your work. And we will catch you all next time around. Good night, Aunt Cindy. Good night, Mama Zilla.